The topic is the use and abuse of women, as we have seen already, but comparing Islam and the left, yet another line of attack. So please welcome Nonie Darwish.
Hello, everybody. It's always a pleasure to speak at the American Freedom Alliance. I thank you very much for inviting me. Like leftism, Islam cannot survive without propaganda and outright lies. And the speech about China reminded me a lot about the same tactics. So tyranny works very similar in different cultures. It's a very fragile, when a system is fragile and based on lies, they have to resort to lies and propaganda. There's no doubt Islamic law is misogynist and it's oppressive. Sharia law limits women's freedom immensely. And after Muslims migrated to America and to the West in general, they started demanding, we want Sharia, we want Islamic law. Actually, they wanted to create a state within a state. And they can't wait to have it. So the West have to understand that anybody who's a true Muslim, who really believes in Islam, they have to believe in Sharia, in Islamic law. And they unofficially actually apply it in certain areas, especially regarding men-women relations. There are some girls who were killed, some Muslim girls, by their families inside America here. So the honor killing exists even in America. So I wonder, who's honoring? Is it, honor or honor killing? So the leftists still support Islam, despite of all we hear about Islamic law and how devastating it is, especially to women. They still support Islam in America, and they defend it. Leftist Democrats share one thing in common with Islam. They both use women as an excuse to silence speech and to silence the opposition. Sexual harassment laws in America that were created in the 80s, I think, or in the 90s, they were created when Clarence Thomas, they wanted to defeat him and to prevent him from becoming in the Supreme Court. So what did they do? They created a sexual harassment scandal. What is the left doing again today? They're still using women. They are creating sexual harassment and sexual, scandals on Trump. They're bringing bimbos accusing Trump, we had a relationship. Or it is so amazing how the left keep repeating the same thing with every good Republican. And the media helps them. Otherwise, if the media didn't help them, we won't even care about it. They can sit and speak and yell as much as they want. But the media, exaggerates what they say and support them and give them a voice. And that's how, these lies keep spreading in America against honorable men. So there is a pattern to destroy Republicans through sexual harassment accusations by Democrats. And could one of these reasons be, why are they doing that? Why are Democrats doing these against honorable Republicans. I believe because the Republican Party respects biblical values. Democrats don't want to honor biblical values. They are anti-biblical values. They have actually contempt for women. They say they are for women. They say we support women. But in fact, because they want to manipulate women, they actually have contempt for women. They think women are easily swayed with victimhood, giving them victimhood status. Leftist women believe that, but Republican women don't. I spoke a lot on college campuses, and leftist students often attacked me. How dare you criticize Islamic law and Sharia, even though it does oppress women? They were against me for explaining about how Sharia law actually oppresses women, which is very clear. Do you know that under Sharia law, a woman cannot leave her house without permission from her husband? That is Islamic law. So I was speaking about basic human rights for women that were denied by Sharia. And the leftist students who were hearing me were appalled. How dare I speak against Islamic law? That you must be racist. That's what they told me. You must be racist because you're criticizing Islamic law. They didn't even know I lived under it. I lived under Islamic law. So leftist American kids, unfortunately, are in denial. They ignore that there is a death penalty on apostates under Islamic law. Anybody who leaves Islam will be killed. If not by the government, they'll be killed by their family, or they'll be killed on the street by anybody. And the government will cover up for them because they know that it's a crime to leave Islam. So they will record the death as an attack by a crime. It's just a criminal attack. They won't say the truth that they were killed because they were accused of apostasy. So recording, murders in the Middle East for apostasy is very hard because it's not recorded, actually, as a murder for apostasy. So for decades, Western feminists have turned a blind eye on the oppression of women under Islam. They're not interested in the topic. I was never invited to speak about Islamic law, and I wrote a book about Sharia. I was never invited to speak by any leftist or Democrat group. They claim to be defenders of women's rights, but rarely criticize Islamic treatment of women and avoid any mention of oppression of women under Sharia. In our universities, criticizing our Constitution and the Bible is okay. Actually, they take pride in criticizing their own government, their own Bible. But don't you dare criticize Islamic law. Well, that would be the racist in their mind. That would be racist. Leftist feminists in America were very silent after the barbaric attack on Israelis last October 7th, when Muslim men crossed the border of Israel, raped, tortured, and killed Israelis in the most barbaric and inhumane way recorded in modern history. And I don't see an outrage by the left. It's only conservatives who are outraged. The media is acting a little neutral. This is the side of Hamas, this is the side of Israel, and here this is this, and this is it. They don't treat it as a horrific act of killing. And yeah, it's just it's appalling how the media is handling the attack on Israel last October. Instead of appreciating the culture that gave America the freedom, and by doing that, they should expose other cultures that are oppressive, such as the culture of jihad and the legal system of Sharia. Not one Democrat or leftist group ever invited me to speak. Instead of appreciating the culture that gave women full and equal rights in America, making American women the envy of the world, Western feminists continue with complaining, blaming men, blaming America, and making the Bible and biblical values their enemy, an enemy of progress. Remember when Obama said, one time he said, small town voters clinging to their guns and their religion? That's how they feel about us. The truth is, Western women are free, not by coincidence, but it is precisely because America adopted biblical values. It is biblical values that gave women rights in America. You cannot separate biblical values and women's rights and human rights because they don't exist under Islam. If you bring Islam, there's no... It is a totally different view on human rights. There's nothing called human rights. Under Islam, it's the right of Islam to grow and expand. The most important thing for Muslims is for Islam to grow and prevail and dominate, even at the expense of human rights, at the expense... They can use torture to do it. They crossed into Israel and tortured and killed. And do you know that very few Islamic governments criticized Hamas? Very few Islamic governments criticized Hamas. In fact, they are in Qatar, and they are treated like heroes. There was an interview I watched on TV after October 7th, and they were interviewing people on the street, and there was a taxi driver, and they asked him, what do you think about what happened on October 7th in Israel? They said, they're tigers. They are tigers. That's what the man on the street, he was praising the Hamas killers who went in and killed women, pregnant women, babies, children, men, slaughtered. They were tigers in their mind. So, of course, there are educated and liberated Muslim women in the Middle East. But as a whole, Muslim women are shackled. They are shackled by Sharia law, which still exists on the books today. Muslim women are split into two. In the Muslim world, you'll find women who are very powerful, but these are the minority, who are upper class, who have control, they are respected, and they make decisions, but they have to promote Sharia. They have to promote Islam. So they get this prestige by appreciating and promoting the very laws that oppress them. That's how a Muslim woman becomes prominent, wealthy, with a good position. The ones that object are never heard from again. So this is the dynamic, and that's why I feel when I was hearing about China, I could see the parallels. It's very, very sad that oppression is oppression. So in Islam, the suppression of women is not just a reality. It is a necessity. Why? Why are women oppressed in the Middle East? Is there a function for it? Is there a reason for it? Yes, there is. What is that reason? To answer this question, we must understand the priorities of Islam. What are the priorities of Islam? It is not what Western society, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, that's a Western priority. To respect men and women and children, that's the well-being of the citizens, that's a Western priority. In Islam, Islam fears women's normal, healthy role in a man's life. They don't want that. Thus, they put down women. In the Quran, women are described as having a shortage in brain power and religiosity. So the Quran makes fun of women. The Quran itself makes fun of women. So they are put as second-class citizens in the religion itself. If not women, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, what is it that Islam promotes then? What is it? What does Islam want? If you read the Quran, you will always find a preoccupation with converting infidels and non-Muslims or kill them. That is the core. That is, in a nutshell, what Islam is all about. Islam wants to convert every non-Muslim by hook or crook. And Israel, the existence of Israel in that sea of Islam in the Middle East is annoying to them. It's a constant urge to destroy it, convert them or destroy them. Because this is the obsession of Islam. If it wasn't Israel, if it was another culture, let's say Chinese, they will do the same thing. So Islam does not want a multicultural society. Islam wants one culture, and it's the culture of Islam and nothing else. So it's preoccupied with converting the infidels and or being in a constant war. Be in a constant war. And there is a constant war with Israel. Yes, it goes up and down, but it is a constant war. The number one job of a Muslim man is to be a jihadist, a fighter for Allah, to expand Islam. That's the number one requirement from the Muslim man. I mean, of course, not every Muslim man is a jihadist. That's not, but that's the ideal. That's how they promote what is a good man. In a nutshell, Islam revolves around the idea that if a Muslim dies in jihad while trying to convert non-Muslims, then he is guaranteed to go to heaven. That is a basic, in a nutshell, that was Islam. That's what Islam is. Islam is convert or die. And they are totally focused on that. And if they actually succeed in converting somebody, they are promised to go to the Islamic paradise. And believe it or not, a lot of people, we look at it as this is crazy, but a lot of people actually believe it, and they form their whole life around it. The 19 terrorists that did 9/11, before they did that, they knew they were going to die because they were exploding the airplanes into buildings. They took a bath because they knew they were going to heaven to meet the 72 virgins. That's true. It was recorded that they took a bath and they dressed up in their best clothes. And so these young men really believe it. If you grow up from birth till adulthood with that ideology, you will believe it. And when I lived in the Middle East, I met a lot of people who believed it. I didn't believe it. For some reason, I was born like that. But that made me an outsider. When I lived there, I felt like an outsider.
Can you tell us your background?
I was born in Egypt. So, this is what we are confronting in the West. In that context, the role of the good Muslim woman is to support the jihadi. Who is the good Muslim woman who's respected and given power? It's the wife of the jihadi who tells her husband, go do jihad. My father died in the jihad against Israel. And my mother, after he died, was saying, congratulations, you are now the wife of a shaheed. Congratulations, your father is a hero. And I was like, I don't want him to be a hero. I want him to be here down with us. So this is the culture I grew up in. So the jihadi is put on a pedestal in Islamic society. So this is what Islamic women must compete with over a man's heart. You have to compete with the system that want him to die in jihad. So Islam intentionally gives the right to men because they require from them to go die for the sake of Islam, for the sake of Allah. The system in Islam wants men to go die for Allah. So what do they do to seduce men to die for Allah? They throw women at them. You want to get married? Here, have up to 4 wives and concubines as much as you want. Legally, a Muslim man can have up to 4 wives and as much concubines as he can afford. Yeah, it's legal under Sharia. So in order to encourage men to go conquer the world for Islam, the system gives them a lot of rights, to the extent that even some murders, if you become a jihadi, you're forgiven for some crimes. Oh, you went to jihad and you almost died for Allah? Okay, we're going to forgive your murder. So a lot of this is not even known. It's when I started reading about Islamic law, and I saw this law that forgives crimes if you become a jihadi, and I was like, my jaw dropped. I said, this is unbelievable. So a man's life, his wife's life, his children's life, come in second. In Islamic culture. Islamic culture is totally focused on conquering and winning other lands and other territories. Jihad is the ultimate devotion to Allah, to conquer the world, and they are totally obsessed with it. totally. Especially when they're strong. You have oil that the world needs, give them, boycott. Don't sell them oil until they yield. Israel doesn't want this or doesn't want that. Boycott Israel. Prevent any company from selling anything to Israel. This is the system. In a culture that glorifies death, happiness between a man and a woman comes in second or third to jihad. So it's very hard to ignore jihad if you live in the Middle East. If you say, I don't want to do jihad openly, then it's considered as a shameful dereliction of duty. You can be executed for it if you don't want to go do jihad. In that context, women are viewed as obstacles. So they're obstacles to men giving their lives for Islam, for Islam. So, of course, not all, Muslim men are like that, but that's the system. It's a rigged system. It's very rigged towards corruption and corrupting men, taking them away from being a devoted husband to one wife. So the number one priority of Islam is war to conquer non-Muslims. And that comes before women, before family, and even before life itself. In that context, the mere existence of Western culture that we live under, values of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness is a threat to Islam. Because citizens of Islam look at the West and say, we want to live like that. We want to have freedoms. We want to be able to do this and that. So it's a threat by our mere existence. So now you understand why they want to attack us? That's why Islam has deep animosity to Christianity, to Western biblical-based cultures, because they can't tolerate seeing other successful cultures that treat women with dignity and respect. It exposes them for who they are. After October 7th, the rape of Israeli women, I really saw a lot of Muslims on TV, in Arabic channels, the Egyptian channel. They're just defending it. And I almost wept as to the brainwashing of hatred. But leftists in America have allowed themselves to be misguided and misinformed about Islam. Look at all the protests that happened in support of Hamas and what they did in Gaza. It happened here in America. Protests on the street in LA in support of Hamas and San Francisco. After raping women, after murdering children in their beds, and the beds with the blood, I mean, I don't think even Israel exposed all the horrific pictures. It was too horrific to publish them openly. You just had a few, and it's worse than animals to do that. So leftists in America who are demonstrating on the side of Hamas are totally misguided and misinformed. They think that regarding regarding women is flawed. The left thinking is flawed when it comes to women. There is no excuse for leftist support of Hamas. No excuse whatsoever. No one should ever support Hamas. But why do they do that? The left is afraid. They are afraid to admit that life in America is good. They are afraid to admit that we live in a better culture than most cultures around the world. Because if they admit that, then they are no longer leftists. What are they going to do? And that means they should be also, if they admit that life in America under our Constitution is the best, then they must admit that biblical values and the Ten Commandments, which based our value system, is also good and should be followed. And that's what the left is afraid of, unfortunately. I see that so clearly because I come from a culture that was afraid of the Bible, afraid of biblical values, because they're afraid of freedom, true freedom. The same thing with the left. They are afraid of freedom. They're very similar to Islamists, and they don't know it, unfortunately. But I'm hopeful that, America will avoid this curse that's constantly on our heads. The leftists accusing America is bad, America is this, America is that. It's not true, and we have to stand up against this propaganda that makes us doubt our value system, and it makes us doubt our Constitution and the goodness in America. Thank you very much.